Hello friends, we are glad you're here because today we're talking wedges, the rising cost of rain gear, and is it time for new equipment or do you just need old-fashioned lessons? This is episode number 58 of No Putts Given. Let's get it. All right, this week again we've got Tony, Harry, and Chris. Guys, what's up? How you doing?
I'm tired, man.
Yeah?
Tired.
I'm doing great. I got cake.
Today on No Cakes Given.
Well, anyway, shall we jump right into our topics today? Tony, this week you wrote about Callaway's new, what's that one, Chris?
Sorry. USA?
Oh, is it the bottom of the Bulldog?
No.
Oh.
This one side you get the Statue of Liberty. So I'll show it here and show you guys. So you get Statue of Liberty. And then anybody want to guess what's on the other side? Harry, what do you think would be on the opposite side of the Statue of Liberty?
Oh, no, yeah, let's let Harry
Steak.
Yeah, it's probably obesity.
Oh, obesity. What else is more quintessentially American than obese people?
Fried,
Nope.
I don't know,
Nope.
fried foods.
Fried chicken.
On fire. It says on fire.
The fire seems to be a recurring theme with this line.
That's not a good subject right now. I mean, half of America is in fire.
Hey,
Yeah.
I don't make the head covers. I just pick them out of the box.
Anyway, topic number one, before Chris pulls another head cover out of the box. Tony, earlier this week you wrote on Callaway's new CB wedge. It's Mac Daddy, right?
Mac Daddy CB.
All right, so this begs the question for me. This is a more forgiving wedge, correct?
It is.
But most golfers, they have blade wedges in their bag, don't they? Which is the equivalent of what a pro would use. So, should more golfers be playing cavity back wedges and put their egos aside and get rid of the blades?
Yeah, probably. I think is the safe answer. Like as I said in the article, it's kind of there's an inherent contradiction because you have the overwhelming majority of irons sold on the market are in the game improvement or super game improvement space. And then the overwhelming majority of wedges are these blade style, minimal forgiveness, hard to hit type of things on paper. So that's sort of the argument is, hey, if you play these forgiving irons, you should also play a forgiving wedge. Now, the counter to that argument is you are going to get a little more versatility, technically a little bit of what gets called control with the blade style wedge. And the thing to consider too is once you get past, say, 52 degrees, so it would be the high end of the modern gap wedge range, the forgiveness that you get from cavity designs really starts to fall off because so much of the performance is just driven by the loft of the club itself. And so if you're the golfer who likes to open up the club, manipulate it a bit, do funky things with it out of the bunker, you're probably going to be better off trading a little bit of extra forgiveness for the greater versatility. So again, the deciding point is if you just kind of use your wedges square-faced and don't do much with them beyond that, then yeah, you're probably going to benefit from the cavity back. But if you try and get cute and clever and fancy around a green, then blade-style wedges are probably the way to go.
Chris, if people are looking for forgiving clubs and we're saying that the cavity back is probably more forgiving, why do you think that most golfers play a blade wedge?
Options. Really to date, that's kind of been the option on the market. And blade design, wedge design really hasn't evolved a whole lot. I mean, you go back to Wilson's R90, you go back to, I think we talked about some of this in the Mizuno ES21 wedge article, that really you can make an argument that there are elements of a typical blade wedge design that are maybe actually counterproductive for a lot of golfers. But really, that's kind of been the only option. And like Tony mentioned, you kind of saw the pendulum swing all the way back on the other side. So you had wedges like Sure Out wedge, right? And you had some of these that were game improvement or really super game improvement wedges. So it was such a big step away from the traditional blade wedge that really wasn't close enough to get that person that's maybe kind of interested saying, okay, yeah, I would look at that. Whereas these wedges, one specifically from this week with the Mac Daddy CB and probably throw Cleveland CBX in there as well.
I think you have to.
I think you kind of. I mean, they're first one there, right? And
there are some similarities.
There are a couple of similarities, but it gives golfers that option. Yeah, they're slightly bigger, 3 to 5% bigger, keeping a lot of the technologies of the blade wedges, so they're close enough now that it is a viable option for that person that is actually willing to look at that. And so really it's just a market issue that there wasn't the opportunity for that. But the one question I did have around this and is really kind of what Tony pointed to there is, when does loft take over in place of forgiveness, right? Like, what is that dividing point? Is it 52 degrees? Is it 54? Is it 56? Where the loft of the club is high enough such as to mitigate any benefits that you get from the cavity back weighting? You know, where is that where it's like, okay, I'm going to be better off going with a specific grind as opposed to cavity back forgiveness? That maybe it sounds like a lab test. I don't know.
You can look at the way a lot of sets are designed, these kind of the high tech sets, if you will, where you've got, you know, like slots in the sole and inserts and all kinds of funky stuff going on. And typically what you see in those designs is when you transition from the 7-iron to the 8-iron, that's typically where the tech starts to fall off. And that is the point at which, you know, and the reason for that is because, again, the loft is playing a much bigger role in the forgiveness equation, if you will. And it's not, you know, it's not an absolute cutoff where, all right, hey, forgiveness ends here and then everything else is the same. But that's kind of where the scales start to tip, and you see sort of the decline in I guess what you would say is the importance of forgiveness. And so, you know, that's why, too, you see a lot of guys who, boy, Lenny really wants to be a part of the show today. That's at least Chris, I don't know, Harry, I think probably has a combo set as well. But that's where you start to make that decision as well. Like, hey, is this where I go from the cavity back and start thinking about maybe I could get away with a blade here beginning at the 7 or 8 iron? Or is this the point at which I move from the big forgiving long irons into a moderate cavity back? Whatever kind of the decision point where, you know, your point A and point B are, it usually is in that 8-iron space where those conversations happen.
Yeah, and that it goes back to a conversation I think we were having maybe with Chris Vachel at Mizuno when MP20 stuff coming out, kind of talking about, okay, when, you know, people that are going to combo these, when do you guys start to see that I don't know, again, analogies. I think that like one of my daughters wanted to dye her hair like an ombre type thing, you know, so like you have it one color and then
is that a color?
It's a thing. Yeah, it's totally a thing. And it just starts to shift to a different color and it kind of fades into that. And so if that
here, Tony, I can give you an example a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
You look in there, you see how it's dark on the top.
That's a 7-iron.
And then it kind of like goes
There's your
gradually into blonde.
Now you're down to your 9-iron.
I've got some dimension in there.
And now you're in the gap wedge.
I'll get this done tomorrow, so it won't be here tomorrow. So it's a good thing we're having this lesson today. That's sort of ombre.
I don't understand, girl.
It's actually technically called balayage. Ombre is the older.
I could,
but, you know, we'll have a lesson on this later.
So my point is this: it remains that it's so if it really is for better players in that 8, call it 7, 8 iron, 8, 9 iron. Your 8 irons, call it 38 degrees. Plus or minus in a traditionally lofted set. Now, I totally agree with that, and you see. That's why when you get to that 52, 54, 56, a lot of times better player, you're not even thinking about forgiveness. You're thinking about the grind and the shot making capabilities and how do I use this around the green. So if I were to go to if I'm playing 8, 9 wedge in a blade, or even 9 or pitching wedge or gap wedge in a blade, it's not like I'm going to go to a 56 or 60 in a cavity back wedge for forgiveness at that point. That really isn't who this is targeted for. But I did want to point out, this is a huge opportunity for wedge companies, right? This is a part of the market that Titleist does not own, that Titleist does not dominate, and Titleist does dominate, on tour, retail, etc. That blade wedge space, particularly for better players, because there hasn't been another option. So if I'm, again, Callaway, Cleveland, etc., and I'm chasing, and this is a part of the sandbox that Titleist isn't playing in, it's a huge opportunity for them to gain some type of meaningful market share by doing something that Titleist is probably not going to do and certainly isn't going to do right away.
Harry, what about you? What do you play and what do you think the differences are?
I play the traditional blade just because I do end up playing a lot more shot types around the greens. Like I need to play a low spinny one that needs to get up and over a bunker. I'm gonna play off the back foot, open the club face, use the bounce, that kind of stuff. My only advice would be is if you don't know how to do that and you don't know how to pull it off consistently, go and get a cavity back wedge just so you can get some consistency in your shots. I mean, if you're looking at it and you're trying to do all these shots and blading it and thinning it across the green, your strokes gain is going to go from is going to go up dramatically. So just get some consistency, get it on the green, 2-putt, walk away, or whatever it is. I think a lot of guys it's an ego thing, like Tony suggested and Chris. It's more of what you think that you should play because you see a lot of them on tour and you think, it's only wedges, it's easy. But when it actually comes to reality, if you consistently thin it, fat it, or whatever, go for the most consistent wedge out there, which would be cavity back, especially in the bunkers, because those ones with the huge sole, I mean, that smart sole with Cleveland, it really gives you a little bit more forgiveness to get it out those bunkers. And I know bunkers are one that are very inconsistent for golfers.
Harry, we're going to keep it in your court here a little bit. Earlier this week, we put out the rain gear buyer's guide.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay, like
Sons of bitches!
$1,000 for a rain suit? Like, you've got to be kidding me a little bit.
It is overpriced. Yes.
What was that? Was that a shoes that was 1,000?
Juice. Yeah, juice.
Yeah,
It's
shoes.
pronounced
Yes.
shoes.
You have to say it like a Swedish chef, like shoes.
So basically, yes, it's $1,000. These rain suits are phenomenal. This was the hardest test this year.
But are people melting? That's what I don't understand. Like, what are we protecting them against?
Rain?
We're not sugar.
If you're us in America right now, we only play in sunshine. That's the thing. If you go to Scotland, they don't know what sunshine is. So they go and play in any conditions in any time of the year. So you're going to have to adapt to those conditions. Now, you have to have a rain suit. And if I was going to buy a rain suit, I want to buy the one that's going to keep me dry throughout the whole round. And it's going to cost you some money. Now, if you break it down by a month, those $1,000 for the rain suit, you're looking about $8 a month for 5 years. So when you break it down like
That's
that,
a lot.
well, if you break it down like that, if you have a scary,
I almost pay that much for Netflix.
if you're scared of that price tag, just break it down to something that you think you can relate to. And yes, it is expensive. And should it be that expensive? No. But should a driver be $550? Should PXG irons be, X amount of dollars a club? Like, should you be paying $3,000 for a set? $20 to me might be $20 different to you.
Fair. Very fair. I'm going to come back to you after I check in with Tony and Chris, because our job, and Harry, your job, is not to determine the prices. It's to test them. And if the $1,000 rain suit comes back as the best rain suit, so be it. That's our job, to present that information. But Tony, how much would you pay for a rain suit? If you wanted to go out there, it's raining today. If you wanted to go play today, or at least it is in Virginia, I don't know about New York, but if you wanted to go play today, how much would you pay for a rain suit to keep you dry while you played?
Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer to that. I'm in a position where I can say comfortably that, if I get a little bit lucky, I'll get my 5th round of the year in this weekend. And so, using Harry's per use formula or per year formula, it's going to take me a while to get $1,000 of value out of that. That said, I have been on the course. I remember in my Tuesday night league several years ago, we had one of those totally unexpected torrential downpours where everybody's just scrambling to get rain gear out as soon as they quickly as they possibly can. And you get into the restaurant afterwards, and it really is like a quality check on everybody's rain gear. And so, it's one of those things where we joke about the umbrellas and, maybe even the ball retrievers to an extent. It's one of those things where it seems like a preposterous amount of money to spend until you're in that situation where you really wish you had spent it and gotten something that actually does the job well. So I don't know if it takes $1,000 to get that. And if, I'm not suggesting everybody needs to go out and buy themselves some shoes rain gear, but I think it's probably worth paying for at least the difference between good rain gear and okay rain gear.
Chris, what about you? What's your cap on rain gear? How valuable is it to you?
I love this conversation because it brings out the absolute idiot in everybody out there. And what I love about it is it's totally perspective, right? And so you see people that are going, 1,000 different directions. And yeah, if I'm a recreational golfer and I'm going to go play 5-10 times a year, whatever the case is, and yeah, I'm absolutely spoiled because I play in America, so we're already kind of fair weather golfers as is. $1,000 seems absolutely ridiculous, right? So I thought about it a little bit because Shoes has presence right in the ski industry, and that's really where a lot of the technology and stuff is coming over from. And so being here in Colorado, go up to the mountains and see anybody that works on a mountain or skis X number of days a year. And a lot of those people have invested a fair bit of money in what they're wearing because they want to stay warm, they want to stay dry, whatever the case is. And you talk to those people and say, hey, would you spend $500 on a good ski jacket? And they'd say, yeah, absolutely. No brainer because I'm going to use it X number of times, right? And that's kind of where, Harry's per use formula and some of that stuff comes in. One of our daughters plays soccer on one of these travel teams, right? And so they're training and playing in different environments and whatever. And so when they get like their team gear, yeah, absolutely. We're buying the higher end stuff because they're going to be out in those elements over and over and over. And they don't get a choice to say, oh, sorry, we're not playing today. Oh, take a rain check. We're going to play again tomorrow. So if that's your element and that's where you're involved, that's where the argument gets a lot more solid to spend that amount of money because you'll probably spend it once.
You mentioned cold. I could understand spending some more money to stay warm. I guess if I'm playing in cold, rainy environments, I hate being cold. So I will pay more money to not be cold. But if it's a summer rainy environment, I think I'm just going to get wet. But that's me. But Harry, we don't only have $1,000 choice, right? Enesis has a really great value option.
Yeah, and I think the whole suit is something like $150, $60 for a rain suit, and it's good.
That's reasonable.
And the thing about this test was the hardest test I've ever conducted at MyGolfSpy. Out of, I think it was 16 or 18 suits, 16 of them or 15 of them were phenomenal. They were really good. All different price points. It was hard to determine which is going to be best and which was going to knock down the pecking order. So the rain gear category is just jumped up huge amounts in 3 years. So a lot of the rain gear out there now is going to be good. Every time you wash your rain suit, you're washing the waterproof membrane off it gradually. So every single wash, you're actually making it less waterproof. So then it's irrelevant if you're looking for a rain suit. So you have to, I would spend the money to get that once in a lifetime purchase of that $1,000 rain suit and make sure it lasts.
You're going to come home with the $1,000 rain suit one day, aren't you? I'm going to have to murder you. I'm going to have to do a murder.
I probably.
Yeah, but then you'll get his rain suit.
Yeah. And here's the thing about the top leading brands. They do little things that make a big difference, like shoes to shoes. So they have like a little filter system in the wrist. So when water comes down, instead of going onto your hands and gloves, it filters here, stays here. So when you go up, it filters back down your arm. Like little things like that. They put mesh lining in your pockets.
Almost like a gutter system.
Almost like a gutter system. But little things that you don't notice makes a huge difference. The flexibility in your shoulders, where you are at the top of your backswing, where you're going to put more pressure on your shoulder blades. They've put a material that is stretchy. So it's not just, all right, it's going to keep you dry. It's going to be functional. You're actually going to shoot better scores because you can swing as easy as you can in a sunny 80-degree weather.
Was it Adam was telling me, Harry, is it the shoe suit that has like a slightly different material like in the belly section to prevent it from like sagging when you're like bent over or standing over a ball?
Yeah, so that's a big one. That's a good point. They have like a strap that goes, so you can tighten it on the middle part of your section and the bottom part. So basically when you crouch down for your putt or your swing, sometimes the material actually bunches and actually gets caught at you can technically catch it on your rain gear. So they've basically made it tailored for the individual golfer, so you're not hitting it with your grip every single time you putt. And I've done that a few times with rain gear. It's so frustrating, especially on longer putts. It's so frustrating. So that little thing right there is a good little bit of secret that you need to look for.
So we're going to move on, but everyone should go and check out the Rain Gear Buyer's Guide. If you're in the market for a $1,000 rain suit, it's there. If you're in the market for a $150 rain suit, we've got some options for you there. So take a look, see what would best fit your environment. But moving on, Chris, I'm excited to get into this topic because so many people say, I'm not doing what I want on the golf course. It's time for me to look at some new clubs. But I kind of want to explore the line between, is it your equipment or do you just need old-fashioned lessons? What is that line? Where does it start? How do we dig into that?
This is such a good and loaded question.
I know.
Because there's such part of what's difficult about it, right? There's such fallacies on both sides of this thing, right? You can't just buy a better game, and that's where the equipment stuff comes in, where it's like, yeah, if you just walk into a store, and we've said this a number of times, and Adam, our owner, said this a number of times, right? You're basically buying lottery tickets. You're just picking this one, picking that one. Maybe you get a winner, maybe you don't, and people are on that carousel and just buying. Maybe you find one, maybe you don't. That's the absolute worst way, right, to buy equipment. On the other side, the biggest fallacy, I think, on the educational teaching lesson side is, how do you know who a good teacher is? Right? I mean,
someone who helps you improve a part of your game.
Right. So how do I know who that person is? Like I looked up this morning, some of these top 10 lists or whatever, which is basically, my opinion, an entirely outdated methodology. It's people inside the industry voting for their other buddies inside the industry without any feedback whatsoever from golfers and their improvement. Like, the golfers aren't even taken into consideration in these. And if I want to go see a top 10 teacher in the country, I can pay between $300 and $400 an hour up to roughly $10,000 a day. Well, if I'm going to spend that kind of money,
you better come in your $1,000 rain suit.
And I might just go buy a new putter instead and go, hey, maybe that'll fix it, right? Because I don't even know if this is going to work or not. So I said, okay, well, what if you can't travel, right? So these are like, whatever across the country. What if you can't travel? Just look up in your own state. Cheapest thing that I found was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2 a minute. So you're going to be $60, $70 for a half-hour session, $140, $150 for an hour. And a lot of times that first 2 hours is just like a player evaluation, just to kind of see where you're at, right? And see, okay, can we help you? You're not kind of, right when you go into a doctor's office and they, check everything out, just kind of get a basic kind of examination of you, your game, strengths, weaknesses, where they can help you improve or not, whatever. And you may be already $300-$400 deep, and you haven't really even started to improve, with no guarantee that you are going to improve. And really, there's no risk on the teacher side. It's not like you go 5 lessons, go, hey, haven't improved, can I get my money back? It's not how it works. So, I mean, I could go on for probably at least another 8, 9, 10 hours on this. Yeah, at least another 90 seconds, because that doesn't even get to this idea of, if they can evaluate you for an hour, why can't I go to 5 different instructors and evaluate them for an hour and see if they're a good fit for me?
Like a trial period?
Well,
an
you-
instructor
well,
trial
you-
period?
I can. I just
but
have to
you
pay
just
them.
have to pay for each hour. Yeah,
I mean,
Right.
that's
Right.
But what happens if you're a 30 handicap that can't interpret what he's saying, or the golf pro does dumb down? All right, you just need to do this, that, and that, but you can't implement it yourself, so you're not seeing yourself improve because you physically can't do it. If you can't interpret it, then you're at a loss.
Right,
And maybe equipment might be the right way, and try and fix it by equipment way. That might be a thing.
Wouldn't you also agree that so not going to just one specific player, but over a group of players, that better teachers would be able to get more beneficial results for a larger percentage of players over, a large enough data set? I mean, wouldn't that be a fair thing to
Yes,
look
that
at.
would be
No
a fair,
different than
that
we
would be a
look
fair
at.
assessment. Yeah, that would
We
be a
look
fair
at doctors,
assessment.
we look at educators, we look at all these other industries, and we rank people, right? If I look at the top 10 heart surgeons in my area, I'm not, I want the person that has the best outcomes most often, right?
Well,
If
the heart surgeon, you're not helping with the procedure, so you're just lying there. If you're a golfer, you're actually implementing his advice in his swing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Just barely, but yeah. There's in any teaching learning thing, right? There's always going to be something that's on the player, right? Absolutely,
Yeah.
there's going to be. But I would also make the argument, as someone that has taught in a classroom for 20 years, that you are always battling that idea of here's what I'm going to do, but you got to meet me somewhere in the middle, and you need to put work, time, effort, and energy into this, right? In any one scenario, if that person decides not to do that, yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. But I would argue the best teachers are also able to motivate. They're able to incentivize. They're able to help. They're able to do things to help encourage those behaviors out of their students. If a student doesn't want to work, I get it. That's a very difficult proposition for any teacher.
How many bad assessments did you get at the end of the year? Like how many did they correlate to bad grades?
Almost universally, right? Where it's like people that were successful love the class, love this, right? Whatever. Kids that that test was way too hard. How long do you study? We had a test. I mean, you get that type of situation a fair bit. So sure, I mean but I guess that's the difficulty, right?
Yeah, that's the unbiased part.
Tony, you've been quiet. Where do you stand on this?
So I think the conversation starts with a pretty basic question. It's what's your level of commitment, right? What are you willing to put into it? Because if you're like, yeah, I want to fix something in my golf swing and I'm willing to go one time and give a guy an hour and, hopefully that solves it and I'm done, but that's it, then that's almost kind of a really what's the point? But if the objective is to get better and consistently improve, I think lessons are a much better answer than buying new golf clubs. But again, it is a two-way thing. Like you can't expect the instructor to go, all right, I need you to do this. Here's what I see. Let's work on this thing this week, right? And that's one thing you want to look for in a good instructor, right? You fix one thing at a time and build. You're not, if you're building a tower of blocks, for example, you don't grab 7 of them and just be like,
Here's 6 or 7 things you need to work on.
Right. It's one step at a time. And so, I look for a guy who understands that basic fundamental idea. And the other thing that I think is important to look for an instructor is somebody who isn't necessarily a system guy where it's like, hey, I need you to, everybody has to be here and here and here and then here. It's like, all right, I understand that we all have different physical capabilities and limitations, and I need to work within those to deliver a consistent result. That's a big thing. And reputation is another. I'm extremely fortunate. I have a very good instructor in my area, Anders Matson, Saratoga Springs. Go see him if you're in the area. He's certainly the best I've ever worked with. Shameless free plug there. And again, it's one of those things too. You need to understand what you're looking for. So for me, it was there are guys who aren't necessarily interested in data. There are teachers who typically or don't work with data. They don't have TrackMan or Foresight or whatever it happens to be. I want to be able to correlate numbers with what I'm doing in my swing and go, all right, yeah, that was good because my face to path, for example, was in my normal limit and in that range that I'm trying to consistently achieve. As Chris mentioned, the hard one is, right, how do you know who's good? Because it's hard to quantify those results. So I think word of mouth is really good. If there's a guy you play with who you were beating consistently and suddenly he's whooping your ass, and it's because he went to see a guy, maybe you should see that guy. And again, like there's
hey, you're the ass whooping guy. I want to talk to you.
And the reputation in the area. So Anders, again, going back to shamelessly plugging my guy, has sent numerous kids to drive, pitch, and putt. So, he's got kids going to Augusta every year. So that to me is a pretty solid result because, what golfer wouldn't love to go to Augusta every year? So, it's things like that. But, yeah, so.
Let me phrase it this
Bring
way.
us back.
If somebody is thinking that a new putter, a new driver or something will fit my game, but they are a person who does need lessons. For example, if you're a crappy driver and you hop curbs all the time, or you don't know the rules, a new car isn't going to help you be a better driver. You're still going to hop curbs in your Ferrari, and you're going to do more damage.
There are those cars that parallel park for you, though.
You are going to... Here's the thing about it, though. If you are one that drifts off, I mean, you've just got a new car, so you know exactly what I'm going to say. Is if you're driving down a motorway and you start veering off the lane, it's got autocorrect and puts you back in. So
okay, so
there
if you're simple, veer,
there are features that can help you become a better driver if you do that.
Or is it just disguising the fact that you're a bad driver?
There it is, right there.
It could be that.
Because I now have lane correction. I got a new Mazda CX-5. It's great. Another shameless plug. I love it. But if I don't pay attention enough that I'm veering out of lanes and it's lane correcting, am I becoming a worse driver because something else is doing it for me?
Yeah, but you got to relate this to golf now. So if I slice this driver 10 times out of the 14 shots that I hit, and I'm in the rough on the right, if I get a draw biased driver, now I'm hitting it 6 out of 10 slicing, and now the other load is now on the fairway. I'm now in a better position to make a better score on the hole.
So I think that's probably the best example, right? I sliced the driver, so I went out and got something like a Ping SFT or the new Callaway Big Bertha B21, and now I slice it less, right? That's one problem, and you can get to the point, right, especially if you're a casual golfer, you just play a few times a year, and you're looking for a quick fix, and not necessarily interested in investing too much time in a solution and prevention rather than a workaround. So that's a case where, you can, especially if you're coming from, a non-draw bias driver, or you inadvertently ended up with a toe bias driver. That's a situation where, you can see some improvement with a quick fix. But let's say, all right, you don't necessarily, I'm a good example. I don't slice the ball off to the right at all. I do sometimes hit it out of bounds, but my bigger issue is I don't hit greens. And so, that's a case where, okay, maybe I could move to a more forgiving iron, but there are reasons why the typical more forgiving design doesn't necessarily work for me either. And so that's a case where, what you need to do is solve this with consistency, because there's not an iron that's going to significantly upgrade my green in regulation percentage, right? The solution here is to fix your swing, because I have access to basically every technology-driven solution available. I didn't really see. You'd see me. I'd have hot streaks where everything would come together.
35, 45, baby, king of the 80. Yeah.
Yeah, and then two lessons into Anders, and I went out and I shot like a 79. And it was an effortless 79. It wasn't those, oh man, if you somehow chipped in 3 times and buried 2 50-footers and that kind of thing. It was just like, right, all right, keep it in play, hit more greens than you miss, and make your putts. And that's all from just having somebody look at it and go, this is what I see that you're doing wrong. This is correctable. Mm-hmm. It's not, none of this stuff is rocket science, impossible to fix. It's just identifying the problem, coming up with a solution that you can implement, something you're capable of doing, and then getting the reps in that it becomes part of your internal system, if you will. Yeah. And that's something, it takes time. And yes, as you mentioned, Chris, it takes money, because you have to pay for your instructor's time, but ultimately it's more reliable and more repeatable than going out and dumping $500 on a driver and going, maybe.
Well, and I think to that point though, Tony, I think, it's absolutely worth it if the value is there, right? And you can't establish value for somebody else, right? So there's value in $1,000 rain suit. There's value in a $100 rain suit, and I think to really simplify it, oh my gosh, you're playing these old Wilson staff blades and you can't hit it 4 feet off the ground. We got to get you into something that's higher launching type of spin you need. So we got to get you fit first, and then from there, let's see what kind of instruction we need to adapt to that. So it's almost like you need like a life coach for golf.
Like you said, if you're coming from a 30-year-old set of blades and you can't get them off the ground, yeah, chances are anything you walk into a golf shop and buy today is going to improve your game by some measure. But if you have relatively new equipment and it's maybe just sort of giving you a tiny bit of improvement or not even real improvement, but just sort of like, yeah, I see some improvement because I need to justify the fact that I just spent $1,200 on new shit and it hasn't really improved my game. Like I'm going to be strongly in the lesson corner every time. And that's pretty odd from a guy who really needs you to read about golf equipment
you tinker around
to afford lessons. If I want to pay for lessons, I need you to really be focused on golf equipment. So,
well, lots to say on this topic, and I think it's a good open-ended topic, and we could revisit this anytime. And what I'm hearing from you guys is no matter how skilled you are as a golfer, lessons are never a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with getting new equipment, but you can never hurt with a good lesson or two. So, to wrap up, Harry, do you have an English phrase of the week?
I do. And this is for the guy, something Armstrong, Donald Armstrong. I know he loves this segment, so I need to go spend a penny.
I need to go on a shopping spree.
I think I know this.
I need a head cover.
I need a tax deduction.
I need a wild weekend with the boys.
I need a deductible expense.
So this is back in the day when England was older than America was founded.
It's always been older than America.
Well, yes. It's been a long day so far.
Do you have any pictures of you when you were younger? Yeah.
Basically, spend a penny. When you were out shopping, you had to put a penny into a slot machine-ish and to go for a pee. So you had to spend a penny to go to the toilet. To the bathroom.
And so the expression has lingered.
Has stayed. Right. I need to go spend a penny. So there you go. You're welcome.
Harry, you have a winner of the head cover that you auctioned off for subscribers and likes last week, right?
Yeah, so this Winged Foot US Open head cover is going to It's Tyler 003. So congratulations. I will be in contact and sending this out to you as soon as possible.
Motion to overpronounce the word winged such that it is winged.
Winged
foot.
The winged foot.
Winged foot.
The U.S. Open at winged foot. Anybody?
And we're out.
No Putts Given is powered by MyGolfSpy, the most extensive reviews in golf. Before you buy, MyGolfSpy. 9 million readers do it every year. Check us out.